Hello everyone and welcome to our Circle and Salve Women. So for this article that I have written, it is entitled School Year 2021-2022. Hard for me to even state that, given that to me we really truly did a fast forward from 2019. And I say this because making it a global pandemic, we all understand all the ramifications that went forth with the SARS-CoV-2 as a virus that just came about, and perhaps for many of us out of nowhere, and then because of the COVID-19 that ended up drastically causing some unfortunate major sicknesses and fatalities. It really exacerbated already many fears that perhaps already existed in this world, and for us to have to fight something that we could not see, it was even more of a problematic situation worldwide. And so it was very understandable that many of us just shut our doors, stayed inside the home, and even though we were allowed to go outside with masks on and so forth, many of us just settled in our home and found that as a safety net. And with me is you have to, many of us could argue and say, you have to be this way or that way. And I truly am a believer that the more division that I would cause amongst those around me, I don't know if I would be really creating, therefore, a unity. And so being in a family where one of my parents was a Republican, one of my parents was a Democrat, it was always fascinating to hear both sides. And I truly have always felt that I was blessed with being able to have that neutrality, to just sit there and listen, because the two people that would have these debates, sometimes very heated arguments, were people that I truly respected, honored, and loved. It gave me that push, that degree of thinking and really just making certain that I heard both sides and was able to really take in what they were stating and found some compassion, some empathy to really hear what they had to each say. And so with all of this, what I call the social war, many of us have tuned away from it because it can get fairly heavy. But we know that as this school year starts, there's still this concern of, again, outbreaks and what do we do? There's still these questions about, do we wear face masks? Do we not? There are those who are pro-vaccination. There are those who are against vaccination. And I will be perhaps one to really truly say, I understand both sides. Everybody has their different perspectives. And I will be the one to tell you that I remember when I ended up getting COVID for 2 weeks, and the article that I had written on that, I tried very much to remember all the many types of symptoms that I had to undergo, and really I try to just remember, because as I went through it, very harsh days, one specific day where I really couldn't breathe, and it took everything I had and all the faith that I had to just push through. And the only mindset that I had that strengthened me at that time was, you have got to stay strong and make sure that you will be okay, so that you wouldn't have to go to the hospital, because you got to make room for those who really need it. And I had to keep myself in that position, and that's what kept me going, as well as actually attending my virtual classes at the same time, telling myself that your students need you and you cannot just lay down. And honestly, they were my strength. They just truly were my heart at that time, who were understanding what I was going through without truly knowing how I was feeling, but just I could see it in their eyes that they had the the compassion, the empathy to really just help push me through as I was recovering, going through the motions and so forth. So I remember having written that article, not because I like to dwell on misery. No, I mean, trust me, I was doing everything I could with my loving husband, just giving me soup and all that I could perhaps put into my system, because I had lost my sense of taste. The food that I was eating tasted like sulfur, and and not that I've ever eaten sulfur, but it really was just like eating a match or so. And that's the only way I could describe it. And the only things that I felt like I was getting some type of gustatory sensation was really anything that was spicy and hot. And so I recall that, and I don't ever want to go back to it again. And yet we have colleagues that are still to this day who are not vaccinated. And you know what? It's none of my business, because I say to myself, regardless of what's going around in this world, my students want me to focus on them. And I am going to just speak of two, going into the light. I'm going to speak of two teachers that have helped me to remind myself where I stand and where my focus should be amidst all of this truly understandable concerns that we may have in this world. And we all know, aside from COVID, we've got many other concerns in this world that still linger and perhaps sadly have been set aside because of COVID. Again, understandably, because whatever extremities are out there, whatever is really to be looked at with greatest concern, we've got to address. And so it's just like having a family. It really is about prioritizing what is in the front lines, and then as we fix those things, hopefully fixing them and so forth, and making some bandages here and there, where we try to get through it all. And I feel like we've been doing that forever. So for me, coming into this year, I would hope that teachers remember, students don't care, the children don't care what all the madness is about. They are so excited. I've met some of them already as they were picking up their what is that? Their class schedule. It's been a while for me. And, their parents were, and you first think, oh, they're not going to show up. And, no one's going to care. They're probably just going to look online what their schedule is. And yet there were hundreds of parents and some parents and then their children, lining up with them and I could see them from a distance, and it just warmed my heart, because it made me again remember that there's true love for each other and education, just the love for learning, just the love for being together and in a space where we can all have a commonality to be strong in the heart, the mind, the body, and the spirit. And to me, school does that. And so I remember saying to myself, oh my goodness, I've got to go in my room and be ready so that when they start walking, because it was an open campus and they could, my door was open, when they come in, I want to make sure that I remember what my aunt, who was a teacher, had so embedded in my heart, and Mrs. Hunley, who had my language arts teacher, had so embedded in my heart to do, and that is smile. And I remember my aunt, and again in my article, I remember how she empowered me. I just kind of peeked in while they were having a staff meeting. And of course, all of these adults conversing, all of these professionals in talking about education and so forth. They were having these conversations. And all of a sudden, from a distance, she beckons me to come over to her. And I was just like, oh my goodness, this is a no-no. And she said, no, go right ahead. Come to me. And when I got to her and she gave me a peso, it was just the most amazing feeling to feel honored at that time, that she gave me that permission to say, it's okay, you are the center, you come over here, I'm going to give you this peso. And I walked away so quietly, and just that smile on her face gave me that strength to go, I can walk through. It was like the River Jordan, right? Or pardon me, the Red Sea, right? And just going through and saying, oh my gosh, I'm parting all of these and getting right to there. And it was really just letting go of any fear and feeling like I can do this. And Mrs. Hunley did that for me as well. I was just, you can say, very, very low income, and fair enough, and no doubt, because it's made me who I am today. And I had many hand-me-downs, and many hand-me-downs. I don't even know. I remember it was like maybe one time in high school when I went before my high school year to go and get like school clothes. So my brother had helped me, but I had never done any like school shopping or anything. So for me, I could hear my cousins getting excited because they had gotten school clothes and so forth. And I was like, well, I'm going to get something new too. And I remember, just because of my beloved brother that had taught me how to sew, I was grateful for that skill that he had passed down to me, because then I remember just taking apart some clothes, hand-me-down clothes, and then re-sewing them, so that in my mind, in my resilient mind, they were new. And I remember that there was like this fashion show that year, just very early on, and I had gone through and did the fashion show. Just, I don't even remember what I was wearing. I think it was something cultural that we had to, walk on this podium and just show everybody in the school and so forth. But I remember Mrs. Hunley with her beautiful smile, and she is long retired since then. But I remember her saying, "Girl, you could just wear a potato sack and you'd be just as beautiful as ever," more or less words. And I just beamed inside. I don't even think I ever smiled back at her, because I was not, I was in a state of place where smiling was not a part of me all the time. It was always like just something that I had to learn. So I know that it was her smile that taught me to smile and how important it was. And I'm just grateful for teachers, the very few that really were an impact in my life to help me pull through all of those moments where I felt that I needed to just focus and I needed to just keep going, aside from all the madness that was going around. And a lot of people not realizing that sometimes what you look like at school is not really what your makeup is. And when I say makeup, your house makeup of what it truly is in your environment. And so my learning environment was truly different from like the home, where I joke around now, because we get these school supplies and we're getting them ready. I have mine by the door because I'm going to be like, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car, and they get these incredible sets of materials, and I remember just having a pencil and holding on to it for dear life, because if I'd lost that, I'd have to borrow by the end of the day. And so things are progressing, and so I do know that there are beautiful parts of all of this that has pushed us to work together even more, and has really highlighted some things that perhaps we weren't ready to look at or did not want to look at, or perhaps we're not truly aware existed. And it exposed many things that the families were going through on a daily basis just to get students to school. And I was grateful for the fact that some of my colleagues who perhaps were shielded all their lives and sheltered all their lives had never seen, because when I see students coming in, I am now grateful that I know what hunger looks like without you telling me. I know what worry looks like without you telling me. I know what just heaviness looks like without you telling me, because I've been there. And I believe that when you go through all of that, back then, whether it was her or pain, you numbed yourself from it just so that you could keep moving forward. I'm grateful for it, because now I'm going to remember, aside from all the madness that continues on and has added on in our lives, I'm going to just greet them at the door. And that's one of the things that I've grown up to do now, is remembering how important it is to greet them at the door and just smile and say hello and look at each and every one of them in the eyes. And I don't know what kind of year it's going to be. That's teaching. They give you a summer so you forget what the year was before, and that you then build up the courage to do it all over again. And it's kind of like this mental door. Mentally in your mind, you're like, you close the door and you don't get to open that door again until June when school's over, and so you're locked in here for good. But it's truly the mentality where I say to myself, like I ended in my article, if not me, then who? And I know it was a military man that had stated that. I read an article in the past that he had stated that, and I feel like that's what's imprinted in my heart as a teacher, is even when I take a day off when I have to, for whatever reason, and very rare times that I do, when I do, I always think to myself, who's in there, who's being impactful in my students' lives, what are they saying to them, and how are my students taking it? Because when you have them in your room and you know that they have other teachers that they traverse to throughout the day, and they're moving about, you only have that much. And me, with what I have to provide them when it comes to the curricula, I know that it is just a small component of what they are actually gaining from me. Because if I look back, my teachers, really the ones who made the greatest impact with me, were the ones who maybe made one statement, and it's the way they made me feel. It's the way they made me feel about myself and my future, and just whether they even realize it or not, planted those seeds in me that has made me the strong and capable and still continuously forgoing person that I am. And so here's another year. I'm so looking forward to it. Who knows how we will be feeling in October, but for all of you teachers out there, God bless us all. All will be well, and we know this. We've got this. We are soldiers in the front line, taking away the barriers, and any barriers that have made any student or child feel that they cannot. We are the can. We are the hope. And so I'm excited. I am excited. No matter what, I will be smiling. Have a great day, everybody. In the words of my mother, again, God bless us all. Keep being you, because someone else is watching, trying to find themselves through you. Have a good one.